Hello, this is Doris Ann Mertz. Welcome to ACT English Prep Part 4, where we're going to talk about verbs. All right, let's talk about some different verb tenses. The infinitive base form of the verb is the form of the verb plus the word to, like to believe. The present tense form of the verb is what's happening now, such as I believe. The present participle is what's happening now, but you have to have a helping verb, like she is believing. And I just want to point out that a word that ends in ing, it cannot stand on its own. With no other verb, it signals that that's just a sentence fragment. So here's an example. Tomatoes growing in many greenhouses around the world. That's not a complete thought. It needs to tell you something more about the tomatoes before it makes sense. The past tense form of the verb, that's just what happened in the past, such as he believed, and the past participle is past tense but has a helping verb. We have believed. All right, the reason we talk about verb tenses is we want to make sure we are not shifting our verb tenses. If the sentence starts out in present tense, the other verbs should be present tense. So here's some examples. He got on the bus and realizes he has forgotten his briefcase. So we have a past tense verb here, and then we switch to present tense and present participle. So what we need to do is change it to make it all past tense. He got on the bus and realized he had forgotten his briefcase. So if it's past tense, keep it past tense. If it's present tense, keep it present tense. So here's incorrect. When we work together, we got better results. So this could be corrected by saying when we work together, we get better results and making it present tense, or when we worked together, we got better results. It'll just depend on the ACT on what part's underlined. You got to make the underlined part match up with the part that is not underlined, because the not underlined part is correct. All right, the subjunctive mood is a little hard to explain. This is the verb form used when you're talking about something you kind of wish were happening, or a suggestion. It's not really happening. It's most often signaled by the word if, but it also, you could see the word wish, suggest, or some of the adjectives like crucial, like it's crucial that we do this and stuff. So anyways, here's some examples. If I were in your position, I would do the same. Normally you would say, I was in your position if you were talking about something, but since you're using if and making it conditional, you got to use the plural form of the verb. And I know it sounds a little strange, but that's the way you do it. So here's some more examples. I wish it were still in use. So normally it would require a singular verb, like it was still in use, but now we're saying wish. This makes it conditional. So I wish it were still in use. Suggest, that signals conditional. So she suggested that Mark work full-time from Saturday. Mark would normally require Mark works full-time, but since it's conditional, then we got to use the plural form of the verb. And here's another one. It is imperative that the game begin at once. Normally it would be the game begins, but since it's imperative, see, these are some words up here that signal it's conditional. So you got to look for those things. Now we're going to talk about some verbs that are often troublemakers for folks. We got to remember that lie is what the subject does, and lay requires an object. So if you say, I lie on the couch each night. But if you are talking about something that you're laying down, like just lay the papers on my desk, then you would use the word lay. And one of the tricks is if you can replace the word with set, then the correct verb is lay instead of lie. So you could say, just set the papers on my desk, or I'm going to lay my drink on the table. So those are examples of using lay. Similarly, sit is what a subject does, and set is what is done to an object. Rise is what a subject does. I rise from my chair. Raise is what's done to an object, like we raise the flag each morning. So we're going to talk about subject-verb agreement now. So singular subjects require singular verbs, and plural subjects require plural verbs, except, when we were talking about the subjunctive mood earlier. But here's an example. Only one of the projects was completed on time. So sometimes you have to do a little investigating to find out what your subject is. Projects is closest to the verb, and that would make you think plural verb, and you would need a plural noun and needing a plural verb, but that's not really the subject. The subject of this sentence is one, only one of the projects. So therefore it was completed on the time. So don't let a lot of words up here in the subjective clause get you confused. You got to identify what is the actual subject. So subjects are things that are never in prepositional phrases that are signaled by words like to, from, under. Those are never subjects. If, and we got to talk about how to identify when it's a singular, when subject, or plural when it's a compound subject. So if there's an and in between the two subjects, then it's a plural. So Dr. Holt and Dr. Weinberg. If there's a or nor, it's singular. So neither Dr. Holt nor Dr. Weinberg. So then we need the plural form of the verb feels. The singular form of the verb feels that this is an important discovery. Excuse me on that. All right. Sometimes the sentences are inverted, and you got to kind of switch things around to identify what is the subject. Some things that would signal that there's an inverted sentence is ones that begin with there is and there are, and questions are inverted sentences. So you got to kind of switch them around to make sure your subject and verb agree. So here's an incorrect sentence. There's numerous examples of this phenomenon. Numerous examples, that's a plural subject. The verb here that they've used is, so that's incorrect. That's a singular verb. So there are numerous examples of this phenomenon. Here's another one. What is the long-term effects of this decision? So we need to switch that sentence around and say the long-term effects of this decision are. So effects is really your subject right here. So what are the long-term effects of this decision? Now let's talk a little bit about words that end in ing. They can be nouns, such as Tracy loves camping. They can be verbs, such as Tracy is camping. And sometimes they're adjectives, such as some of our camping gear needs to be replaced. And here's another few examples. That screaming is driving me crazy. That's a noun. He is screaming loudly. Is screaming is the verb. Is should have also been underlined because screaming is not the verb on its own. An adjective is the screaming boy finally stopped. All right, so we're going to talk about infinitives. We mentioned them before. That's the form like to believe, to run, to leave. And the main thing that they test, excuse me, on the ACT is they want you to avoid splitting the infinitive. That means they don't want you to put the adverb in between the to and the main verb. So you would need to correct something that says to generously sprinkle into something that says to sprinkle generously. So to always want should be to want always. So you need to keep that helping verb, that to form and the main verb as close as you possibly can, right next to each other, and not split them with a bunch of words. It just makes it more confusing for folks if you're splitting the infinitive. All right, here's a little bit of review. The words equal justice under law is carved above the main entrance to the Supreme Court. So the subject here is actually words, and the verb here that's underlined is the singular version of the verb is carved, and we should be really using are carved, the plural form. So the words are carved. So just try to block out some of the words that are in there in between your true subject and your verb, and it helps you to really tune in on what the actual verb should be. Okay, let's look at this one. Eating carrots gives people good eyesight and to have more energy. This one is testing, we want to keep that verb tense. We want to keep it parallel. We want to keep it in the same verb tense. So we've got eating carrots gives people good eyesight, and then we have the infinitive form out here. So let's see which one is better. So eating carrots gives people good eyesight and to have more energy. Nope. Eating carrots gives people good eyesight and helps them have more energy. That sounds good. It's got gives, it's got helps. Let's just go ahead and look at the rest. Eating carrots gave good eyesight and has more energy. That makes no sense. And eating carrots gives people good eyesight and had more energy. None of them sound good except B. So we want to just make sure we're keeping that verb tense the same. All right, here's an example. We all arrived at the theater on time, but before we bought our tickets, Candace says that she's changed her mind and doesn't want to see the movie after all. So there's a lot of words in there, and if you don't pay attention, you may not realize that you've changed your verb tense, but you have. So we all arrived. We're talking past tense. So, and here we switch to present tense. So let's look and see what sounds better. We want to make this, since this is correct because it's not underlined, we got to make this past tense. So we can count that one out because that's present tense. Don't even have to read that. This one has past tense, so let's try that out. Candace said that she had changed her mind and didn't. That sounds good. Didn't want to see the movie after all. That sounds good, but let's look at the rest of them. Is saying, we don't want that one because that's a present participle form. And told us, so that could be past tense. Let's look at the rest of that. Candace told us that she is changing her mind and didn't. So the rest of that didn't make sense. We went from past tense back to is changing. So the correct answer in this one would be B. So thank you for watching part 4 of ACT English Prep, and I will see you next time.